Guys, what's up?
All right. What's up,
Man,
Adam?
what's going on?
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for, and my dog is here too. Hello. all right. You're messing up the shot.
Bella, come here. Here you go, girl. Good girl. Good girl.
Special guest Bella. So, what do we have? We have Honey Grow, which is like the
Yes.
second time I'm having Honey Grow and filming it for Breaking Bread. It's your first time having Honey Grow, so I like to see other people's reactions.
Okay.
It's like healthy noodles and it tastes good.
If there's a promotional deal, okay, make sure you pay that guy. Okay, just making sure.
I need to.
So me and Adam have been texting each other a little bit about diet and fitness stuff.
Uh-huh.
So I guess this would be a good time for me to ask you, do you have like a cheat day?
No, not a day.
No?
If anything, it would be like a meal.
Gotcha.
You know, and usually it's not. I'm so used to it.
Yeah.
That it's not a. I need a day. Like
You
it's
don't
kind
look
of
forward to the cheat?
no.
Yeah.
It's usually like I have to go and have lunch with someone,
Yeah.
and I can't cook my
Right.
own meal because I'm going to a restaurant. So, but even while I'm there, I'll try to eat the best I can.
Right.
You know.
Right. It's a habit now.
Yeah, it's a habit. It's a complete habit.
How deep are you in?
What, weight loss wise?
Well, with like intermittent fasting and stricter diet.
Oh, so I stopped fasting.
Oh, okay.
Right now I'm focusing on physique and putting on as much muscle as possible.
Gotcha.
Nice.
Especially because in a couple weeks I have a photo shoot because I've I signed a modeling contract.
Nice. Amazing. Congrats, man.
So I hereby give you the title of your new middle name is Zoolander. The Black Zoolander.
The Black
there we
Zoolander.
go.
Oh man, that's so gonna stick. The Black Zoolander. wait till the advertisement pictures come out. It's like Adam's the Black Zoolander. That's all right. So I've had on my Twitter bio, president of Ain't Blackistan. That'd be the time that I change it.
All right.
It's time to update the profile.
There you go. So instead of the Napoleon Bonaparte portrait, it'll be, bro. That's gonna be awesome for you. I'm looking very forward to this.
That's great.
What kind of clothing? Like formal wear?
No, workout.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
Okay.
I can't say too much because I signed an NDA.
Ah, okay.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome.
Bro, if I see you on a Peloton bike, I'm gonna kick you.
I can tell you it's not Peloton.
Okay, all right, good.
But no, so this happened very organically because I initially, I've been saying you should come out to Jersey.
Yeah.
But I initially invited you for the episode, and I was telling him, and he was like, "I love that guy." He's like, "I'm gonna come out there." I'm like, "Fine, let's all come out." And it was just coincidence that I got a new audio setup. We can have more than one person. So
Yeah.
Awesome.
oh, more than
And I wasn't even thinking about that. Like this caught my attention because I was heading down to Baltimore to watch the Ravens, and this is the first AFC title game that's been played in Baltimore since like 1971. So we're talking about something that happened well over half a century ago. I was telling Jason on the way over, I was like, there's no way I couldn't be in Baltimore for that.
For your moment.
Win or lose. Like, there's no way that I could not be. But I would feel horrible if I'm sitting in my living room in Brooklyn while this is happening in my hometown. I need to at least be in the state of Maryland to feel that energy, because, you know, was no way I could afford a fucking ticket.
Actually, speaking of Baltimore and the NFL, so our conversation we had like a couple weeks ago, I was telling him how I was a really, really big sports fan. Used to watch it all. First thing in the morning, Sports Center. Often, last thing I watch before I go to bed, Sports Center. You know, I was that guy. I enjoy sports. I still enjoy sports. But the NBA and the NFL lost me in 2020. And it was already creeping its way in. I remember, like, First Take, you know, started becoming popular with Skip Bayless at the time. And you would see, like, these weird little, like, it wasn't debating sports. It was debating narratives and debating culture and debating race. And it just started happening more and more. They would take an entire week. The lead story is Colin Kaepernick. And he's not even in the league anymore.
I hate that.
You know?
Well, the only reason why, you know why he was in the news 4 years ago. In 2019, right when the NFL started, so the NFL started this whole, the context is, they started this whole Inspire Change thing. Jay-Z was the one who kind of led the charge on that, right? He sat down with Roger Goodell, and essentially, like, that was when, like, everybody had seen Kaepernick kneeling, and and I'll get to that fraudulent shit in a second. But essentially, what he did was he was trying to get back in the league. The NFL, the league said, okay, this is what we're going to do. And Jay-Z and even Stephen A. helped set this up for him. They said, all right, we're going to bring scouts from all 32 teams. Okay? You just got to go here, right? You want your shot. This is basically your last chance. And keep in mind, Kaepernick walked away from a year. He had like 1 year left on his deal with San Francisco, and he walked away from it. Okay, he opted out. A lot of people are like, "Well, he was banned from the NFL." Like, no, that's not what happened. So, anyways, the day of this thing comes, right? He's already got like 20. Like, they had like 32 scouts who were waiting for him. The thing was supposed to go down at 3 at the Atlanta Falcons training facility. 30 minutes before he was supposed to post. And the NFL were going back and forth about like him, the Kaepernick and the NFL were going back and forth. They were like, well, we need more time, and why can't you come to this place? And can you bring we want to bring our videographers because we don't trust the NFL and all sorts of. It was a mess. It was a mess. So, and the whole time, Cap could have said no. I'm not going to do this, but he went anyway. 30 minutes before he was supposed to go, dude fucks off and goes down to this high school football field in an area called Flowery Branch. That's about 60 some miles away from the Atlanta Falcons training facility. Puts on his own locally, does his own video and all that kind of stuff, right? Had a crowd out there and everything. Right? They were selling, his team were selling tickets and T-shirts. They were selling tickets to this thing for $7 a piece. Wow. $7 a piece.
Imagine the person that actually paid that shit.
That was when Kaepernick worship was quite high on Black Twitter. Okay? All of the black media, all the black sports media, people like Jamel Hill and the Michael whatever, I forget his name is, and then you had like local media guys in Baltimore who were like, oh my God, Colin Kaepernick is they treated Kaepernick like he was Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Okay? And so getting back to this, because I don't want to hog up the time here. So after he's done, he throws a ball around him and Eric Reed and a couple of... Now, Eric Reed was still in the NFL at the time. Eric Reed was playing for the Carolina Panthers. Mm-hmm. Eric Reed was like Kaepernick's like right hand. Okay? So after the thing finishes up, so after he's done, this asshole walks over to his adoring public and all of these media people. And by this time, like... The number of NFL people who had showed up shrunk from 27 to about 17, 18. Because some people were just like, you know what, F this, we're not going to go. Like, come on, 30 minutes before you're supposed to be here, you say, screw this, and you go 60-some miles away. And then what he does, this. He says, he's like, well, I want to tell the NFL that the owners and the commissioner to quit running, stop running. We here, we're ready to put together something. We're ready to make a deal. And almost immediately, that happened on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. By Monday, the entire league had washed their hands of him. Mm-hmm. Everybody had washed their hands of him. At least, I mean, and that's why you have some people who are still like hanging on to this narrative about Colin Kaepernick, that he was like this great savior who got, screwed over by the NFL. You had black people who were like, well, we're not gonna. It was used to be all over Twitter. We're not gonna support the NFL. We're gonna boycott the NFL until Colin Kaepernick is back in the league.
Didn't he, after his big moment, get an enormous endorsement deal
from Nike?
After that moment,
from Nike, yes,
and maybe like a documentary deal or like a Netflix show or something like that. So what you're saying is that he didn't get canceled by the NFL. He quit essentially, and then his career grew significantly, but it's still framed as he's a victim of something.
Correct.
Listen.
He sabotaged himself.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Now
into upward success.
Mm-hmm. Now there are two things about Colin Kaepernick you should understand. One, he never speaks for himself. He is practically a fucking mute. Okay? He has people that speak for him.
Right.
There's an article that was written in a piece called The Undefeated. Okay, I can send you that. I can send you the piece. I have it bookmarked in my thing, where it talks about how there was this group, the Players Coalition. It was like some social, like proto-social justice thing that Malcolm Jenkins and one of the Gordons, like the Josh Gordon, like it was something that these guys were trying to start, right? Kaepernick and Eric Reed basically infiltrated it and tried to turn that thing into... They wanted to be the ones who ran the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like they wanted to be the ones where any social activism or anything like that had to run through them first. They essentially tried to Lance Armstrong the social justice in the NFL.
Right.
Huge financial opportunity there.
Of course. It's no wonder why. It's no wonder why he did that. So, anyways, what made this so bad is that Kaepernick was never shy about his contempt for the police, his love of Marxism, okay, and he was very much. I remember what made me in 2016 when he said that Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were two sides of the same oppressive coin, something like that. And he encouraged people not to vote. He encouraged black people not to vote. Mm-hmm. Now here's this guy who worshipped by black people. He's worshipped. You still have sports journalists to this day who want him to make some triumphant second coming. I'm dead serious. And it hasn't happened yet. They're still pissed. I've said this before on Twitter many times. Colin Kaepernick is a fraud.
Was he ever considered like a really great player, like a legendary type?
At one time. I mean, the rate.
Sort of. All right. We'll be 100.
Go ahead.
He had one good season, right? And that was the same season they made it to the Super Bowl.
We beat that ass.
And he had one good season because he started running more and they started playing option. Now, at the time, no one in the NFL really played option. So game planning, the option, they struggled with, and he exploited it. However,
Sure
the
did.
next season, they were ready for his ass. And
Sure were.
He had to sit in the pocket
Right.
because the option run wasn't working like how it used to. And so now he had to play like a regular quarterback, and he's subpar. That's the real. He's a very athletic guy in his prime. He's an athletic guy. He can run.
He also had Greg Roman as his offensive coordinator. Let's not forget that. Greg Roman as an offensive coordinator is great for like your first year or two. We learned that in Baltimore when he came when he became when he was the OC. He was Lamar Jackson's first OC, and we learned very quickly, and everybody on the organization realized. I think it was J.K. Dobbins who said it, that in Greg Roman's offenses, it was very tight end and running back heavy. You were just going to run your ass off basically with Greg Roman, and that's like you said that. Lamar Jackson is a far superior quarterback to Colin Kaepernick, right? But the offenses were very similar, and they stopped working.
So
It also kept getting Lamar hurt for two years straight.
what you guys are really saying is that Colin Kaepernick's legacy is really one of social justice activism.
And that's it.
That's it.
And that's it.
That's it. Like, yeah.
Having a good season isn't really enough to be considered like a sports legend.
No.
No. Now, I don't even know if I told you this. I have a Colin Kaepernick, I don't want to say conspiracy, but theory. I have a Colin Kaepernick theory. So, and I've researched this. So you can trust me or you can
Lay it on us, brother.
fact check me. So, obviously he was adopted. His parents are white. His mother is white. That's what we know for sure. However, it has always been explained that his father is black. But no one knows for sure
Right.
what his father is. Now, I look at my son's mixed race. You can look at different features. You can kind of see like you kind of look like this person or people from this area. And I've seen mixed race kids who look closer to the black side, closer to the white side, right? I've seen mixed race kids all over the place. I've never seen a mixed race black and white child like Colin Kaepernick. I don't know if he's of black American descent. Like
I call him a dark-skinned white boy.
he looks very North African, like
Yeah,
Algerian.
Moroccan, Algerian, something like that. Yeah.
That's what he legit looks like. So, all right, the reason why
His girlfriend is
Visually,
Arab.
this does not make sense to you.
visually doesn't make sense to me.
His girlfriend's Arab.
Right. But all right, so why does this matter? Someone's probably watching like, why does it matter if he's Black American or African or whatever? It's because he wears the Black American experience, the victimhood narrative,
Like a suit.
like a suit.
Yep.
Like I think now that it kind of matters if you're cosplaying as something that you're not.
Right.
And also on top of that, he's one of the mixed race kids who are highly insecure about themselves. It's very evident, like his stupid comic that they made of him, and the stories did you know about the comic?
I knew about it, but I never read it.
I remember.
No, I didn't read it. I just saw, they reported on it, so you see like certain lines and narratives that came from it.
I make it a point not to read fraudulent trash. But go ahead.
But it's very. Let's say it's true. All the stuff that's in there, it's very insecure. Like he's very insecure about his own personal identity, because he is, from his perspective, I'm a black child being raised by white people, and I feel like I'm being withheld to understand the Black experience, right? Well, I mean, to me, it seems very insecure, which is why he doubles down on stuff that he's not familiar with.
Yeah.
So, for example, you're around Black people, right? All the time. You see Black people all the time in New York. How many of them rock an afro?
They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
How many of them wear afros?
I mean, you're asking a guy who lives in Brooklyn. I mean, there are several who.
You see several.
The earthy, like I put it like this: the earthy chicks, they wear afros. I've seen a couple of, but they're like middle age. Very very rarely have I seen afros in. I don't see afros that much in Brooklyn.
He's talking about the male afro.
Oh, male afro?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you might see a male afro if he's about to get his hair braided. That's basically it.
Right.
He doesn't wear it as an active.
Or first Saturdays at Brooklyn Museum.
So like
I ain't gonna lie though, Brooklyn Museum first Saturdays is lit. It was good.
But the reason I bring that up is because he's cosplaying. He thinks this is how, if you're going to be someone who's a revolutionary, you're supposed to wear the fro. He looks like a Huey Newton throwback. Like, that's what he's going for.
He does.
He's playing a character that he's not familiar with. Quite literally, he said, I grew up around white people, and so I was withheld from the Black experience. Right. So this isn't even of a culture that he's familiar with.
Right.
And this is what he thinks that you're supposed to do. You're supposed to wear the leather jacket, the afro, put the pick in your hair, and go like
Black
this.
Panther.
He looks like
identity.
Pete Rock's logo.
Yeah, exactly.
He looks like Pete Rock's logo. Have you ever seen you ever seen that his logo? Like, he looks like that. It's stupid.
It's very funny.
So basically, what you're saying is he's transracial.
Exactly.
He's transracial.
He's transracial.
He's Richard Dolezal. Yeah, Rachel Dolezal. There you have Richard Dolezal. Yeah. Maybe you'll end up doing OnlyFans like Rachel did.
Oh, but you know what's funny about Rachel? Rachel, even despite all the evidence, I still identify as Black. It doesn't matter. She's like, I know you talk to my parents. They're white. They're white as white can be, but I'm Black.
You're saying she hasn't flinched on it once.
She hasn't flinched not one time.
Not once.
That's amazing.
Even worse, I don't know if you saw, but she has an OnlyFans.
I said that. like maybe Kaepernick will do an OnlyFans like she did, and it's actually
really dark.
Yeah,
See,
the spray paint is
that
dark.
Would be
on
racist
that
if she was Black.
The spray paint is very dark. I have to admit, yeah, she's she's milk chocolate basically. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely. I don't know, but I remember when they first found. I remember when it was first discovered that Rachel Dolezal was really white, and I remember, and this is when I started to really see that MSNBC was crackpot leftist central.
Full tilt.
Melissa Harris Perry.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, if you're gonna say it, you have to say it with a lisp.
Melissa Harris Perry. Okay. Anyways, she I remember she had a segment because if you remember her show, she used to have a rolling like a rolling list of Black Twitter figures who would show up on her show, and I remember when they first started entertaining the idea of transracialism.
They entertained it?
Yes. Yes. Go find it.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Find it. It's out there, and that's when I realized because she used to Melissa Harris, MHP, I'll shorten it. MHP used to do segments on Barack Obama's daddy issues. It was embarrassing. It was absolutely embarrassing to watch. And the fact that she entertained this stupidity of transracialism was like, okay, yeah, you guys aren't serious. The whole point was to basically dilute the meaning of things. Now I'm gonna tell you somebody else who is doing kind of the same thing, and that's Nicole Hannah-Jones.
Oh yeah.
There was a big article that came out in Tablet a while back, where that's where I first learned that she too is biracial. Okay, and she grew up in Iowa of all places, and it's like the same thing. Like she's like the now it's like she's the 1619 lady. She's got red hair. She's you've got this fraudulent fan fiction of American history that's now become like the curriculum in public schools, across the country. And it's like, she had the exact same issue. So about a year or so ago, she comes up with this idea. And I think the tweet she came up with, she wrote, there's a difference between being black and being politically black.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the most despicable. Listen, I've been black all my fucking life. It's the most despicable thing I've ever read, but it tracks.
Yeah.
This is somebody, because Nicole Hannah-Jones is another one that was basically raised in white culture, in white circles, right? And comes out to this new world where, she doesn't identify with anything, but she can identify with the black experience. Because literally leftism has reduced blackness, being black, to being nothing but a victim. We are a political blob of victimhood to these fucking people, and it pisses me off.
And to your point, what you're saying is being politically black is that there is only one correct way to think about everything, right? That this is it, and anything else it doesn't count, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, excuse me. So you've had Jamel Hill, who is another great example of political blackness. She wrote one time on Twitter. She asked a question. She's like, "Is it just me, or is there a really big difference in energy political energy between black women and black men?" I said, yeah. I was like, yeah, because we don't particularly like being mules, but y'all certainly do. I remember I'm trying to think of something else. Feminista Jones, who's just a notorious evil Twitter figure. I remember her saying something like, well, black men, if they're not of a revolutionary spirit, we don't want to, like you shouldn't, like you need to leave those N-words alone and all this other type of shit. I'm like, these are black women talking about black men like that who might not have the same views as they do. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Mike, babe, I don't want to date Angela Davis. I don't want to date Angela Davis, and I certainly don't want to be your political mule whenever you want to dabble in some revolutionary spirit. I'm not for that. Okay? I've been black all my life, right? Like, I know what racism is. I know what white supremacy is. And I also know that white supremacy transcends right or left. And right now, most of it, and I've had conversations with my girlfriend about this, the white supremacy and the racism is coming from the left. We already know what it looks like on the right. We've been in conservative circles. I was raised a conservative, but come on, guys. Like, is it just me? Or am I seeing the same thing?
No,
I mean, are you guys seeing the same thing? Like, what's going on?
I think maybe a sober way to look at it would be if you're talking about, right-wing white supremacy, is do you see it as a growing or diminishing factor in American culture, right? Like, do you see figures like that rising up in power, making their way into politics, growing large followings on social media, starting like real movements and stuff like that? And I would argue no. I would say that it's actually the opposite. There was that that guy from was it like South Carolina or whatever, that was like the big like alt-right guy. I forgot what his name was. He was like a far-right activist.
Richard Spencer?
Yes, that
Oh,
guy.
I didn't know he was from South Carolina. So I was like, who's that?
I could be wrong, and maybe it was a different state down in
Okay.
that region. But anyway, he got forced into the shadows almost immediately, right? So like he sort of became a public figure and made his way into the news cycle for like 1 year. And then he was doing events, and he kept getting attacked in public, like physically assaulted, to the point where he can no longer do events, and even the people at this table have already forgotten his name.
Right.
So if he was like the closest thing that we have, in our generation to like the rise of a David Duke, I would say that he bombed out immediately.
Yeah.
Well, Milo Yiannopoulos was like that too.
They're all like that.
Yeah, they came up, but Milo Yiannopoulos and Richard Spencer came out at around the same time.
Yeah.
And Milo was just this creepy Brit who was just like, I remember seeing him on Real Time one time, and he was like, well, the life would be great without so many black people. And it's like, it was something to that effect. Sure. And he got booed, and he was one of these edgy guys, just like Nick Fuentes is right now. Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. Like there's been a shrinkage in these right wing. I mean, they're struggling now. What I'm noticing in that vein, they're struggling to make fetch happen with Charlie Kirk.
Right.
With some of the stuff that he's been saying about DEI lately, it's like Charlie Kirk. Like really, you're gonna pick on this guy?
Maybe what you're saying is that there is a need to find people to sort of prop up into this like alt-right, far-right, white supremacist thought leader, so we can then villainize that person to prove the point that it is this sort of rising movement, when I think we're sort of all in agreement that all of these people are just sort of blips on the radar and don't really matter culturally. And even in the times that we do learn their names and what they're actually doing, that it burns out really fast because people don't respect people like that.
So I think that, because I've had people say, why don't you call it the racism of the right?
My girlfriend asks that too of me.
Well, and I do, when I find it to be necessary. But I think the reason for me is that the right has very little institutional control.
Yeah.
Very little.
Little power, little influence. Yeah, you're totally right.
So, when our schools look at children and say you're an oppressor or you're oppressed, and they say, we need to change the standard for the black kids because they can't keep up with everyone.
We need to eliminate standards.
So
Right.
racist.
See, to me,
Yeah.
if some groyper wants to say whatever he wants to say and is on a private forum, alone in his bedroom, so be it. Whatever.
Who cares?
But when a college-educated person is learning this from their professor and they entering a school and professing this onto children, that's when I have a problem.
It's normalizing it at a real level in society versus
It's
the
institutionalizing.
Yeah.
Institutionalizing.
Yeah.
And that's where it goes, like, progressives are the iron law of projection.
Yep.
Everything about them is projection.
Shout to James Lindsay.
Yes. So when they say institutional racism,
Right.
based off of what we just talked about, who owns the institutions
Right.
and who's implementing the racism?
Right.
They are.
Who works there? Who sets the policies?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very true.
And that's the crux of it for me. That's why I think it's necessary to call them out more so than, let's say, the right. Doesn't mean that the right gets a pass when something stupid happens. Honestly, most of the stupid racist stuff that happens on the right is just stupid. And really it's just
And low influence.
it's low influence. It's just banter. And honestly, they're dumb to put up with it, because then the left uses that to say, see, I told you,
Right.
this is why we need anti-racism.
Right.
You
But
know?
remember what we were talking about on the train earlier, and I've seen this from. This is being talked about, circulated online as well. The vertically integrated messaging apparatus, VIMA, right? You've probably seen me tweet out that the axis where it's shaped like a kind of like a sword, and it's going up, and then you see like the spirals that start out wide at the bottom and then work their way up to the top, right? Mm-hmm. That's where we are. You know, that's kind of when it's vertically integrated. Anything that is said these days, anything that is done, anything that these people can use to advance their agendas, if they get people fighting amongst themselves to create the type of conflict that they need in order to, you know, keep entrenching their power and moving forward and making their power absolute, that's why you hear me say, James Lindsay, who started it, other people who are in this, they say the issue is never the issue. Right. The issue is always the revolution. And that's what we're in the middle of. We're in the middle of a cultural revolution, and they're using just about anything they can to create the conflict. That's why the way I do it, whenever I tweet that, right, I'll say the issue is never the issue, and then I'll put like right, left, right? And the issue is always the revolution. Then I put two of the up, like the up arrows. I want to try to make that easy for people to understand.
The dynamic, how it really works.
That's how it works. Yeah. They keep us fighting while they keep moving up the food chain and making their power absolute.
You know, going back to the victor or is the victor oppressor mentality that we were talking about before. So my sister, she's a single parent, and she has 2 autistic sons. And my autistic nephew in elementary school was told that he is a racial oppressor and that he owes something to the kids of color in his class. And he came home crying, and he was like hysterical about it. And he was like, "Mom, I was told in school that I owe things to these kids of color in my class." And he's deeply autistic. Like, he thinks race means like to physically race. Like, this is like way outside of his wheelhouse. I had taken interest in really blowing the story up, but it kind of blew up without me because a parent went to like a school board meeting and roasted the principal and taped themselves, and it made national news. Like, it made the Post, it made, you know, all the television stations. It was a really big deal. But I was writing this story about my nephew when that happened, and it was at the same school. So, even my autistic nephew, who is the sweetest kid in the world, who just wants to play video games and watch cartoons and hang out with my sister, like, even he's a racial oppressor in their house. It's incredible.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about that. Like, what kind of adult looks at a child and tells them you're incapable or you're responsible for someone else's pain?
Yep.
And like, this is
Cultists.
It's definitely cultists.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. It's fine. It just makes me think about when they say, when they tell people trust the experts, right? Like, Joyanne Reed was talking to Tiffany Justice, Moms for Liberty. What expertise do you have to say this, right? But the experts are telling our kids that they're racial oppressors, right? These are the people who spent 4+ years in college and did all these exams and specified in education, in childhood education, to come out to look at a child and say to them, you're an oppressor.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm sorry, but fuck your expertise.
Basically.
It's disgusting.
It's
disgusting.
You basically went to school for like you said, 4+ years. That's how you know this is a religion.
Yeah.
That's how you know that leftism is a cult, right? You went to school, you go to these S-tier, you go to really any tier university, and I'll have a nice little story about that, but something I sent you a while ago. Mm-hmm. All these schools teach children. They go to these schools, like you said, 4+ years. They have all these different classes. You write papers, you write, theses and all this other type of shit. To get out there and essentially preach to children the word of critical consciousness.
Yeah.
You're going in these schools to essentially teach them the gospel of Paulo Freire.
Yeah.
It's disgusting to me.
I think maybe we didn't see the correlation here, but we started this conversation with how sort of disgusted that you were in seeing this sort of ideology trickle into enjoying sports.
Right.
And now we're already talking about it trickling into education and indoctrinating kids. And it's the same sort of disgust. It's the same sort of pattern. It's watching this same ideology slowly trickle down into every facet of human life.
I haven't even gotten into a situation in Major League Soccer that happened last year. But we can either come back to that or we can talk about that now. But I've been wanting to talk about it for a little bit. But yeah, it like again, it's all part of that that VI the VIMA. It's all part of that. The vertically integrated messaging apparatus where everything, even you commercials, just commercials selling shit on television, commercials online, like pop-up ads or whatever, all of it just looks like it has some hint of critical consciousness in it.
Yeah.
It has infiltrated everything. And this is what Antonio Gramsci, in the early 20th century, this is the stuff that he was talking about. They learned decades ago, communists learned decades ago, that they could not permeate the middle class. I'm sorry, blue collar, because they tried work. They tried the labor unions.
Yep.
They tried to infiltrate the labor unions. Tried, and they failed. The labor unions, because all these commies that went into the labor unions, it's like fucking pinheads talking to. It's like managers talking to guys on the ground who are actually doing the job and getting their hands dirty. Who forgot more about the job than this fucking guy that comes down here from on high and tries to tell us how to live. Mm-hmm. And that's why ultimately unions, while they are still left wing, they're not nearly on the level of left wing as these Marxists want. And unfortunately, that's where they found their home. They found their home in the universities.
Did you guys read Chris Rufo's book?
No.
I haven't yet.
So he gets into this, basically explains that, we're having this moment now where a lot of young people have heard the term the weather underground, in some form. But we really downplay actually how dangerous and violent the weather underground revolution was. We tend to, to boil it down to it was Chesa Boudin's parents, right? That story, right? That his parents did like a bank robbery in upstate New York and shot a guard. I think he was like an African American. I think he was a war veteran or something. And he was a guard at the bank. He died, and then they went to prison for it. But most of the people from the weather underground didn't get in that type of trouble. And, really only people who could get murder charges, but they bombed municipal buildings all across the country. And they really tried a violent revolution for a couple of years, and it didn't work. And they immediately pivoted towards taking over the education system.
Yep.
There's the book about it. There's a tactic that they named. They called it the Long March Through the Institutions. Mm-hmm. And we are going to seize control of the American institutions, and we're going to indoctrinate the next generations of kids and get more people that think like us into this space. And we're going to slowly turn the tide through education. And what we're seeing now is really it's echoes of that sentiment. It is the fruit of that.
It's not echoes. It's the direct result of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's the direct result of it. This is so I went to University of Baltimore for a couple of years. I dropped out. I'm a college dropout. I don't give a shit anymore. Last time I was in Baltimore was right around Christmas. It was past Christmas. And Penn State, Baltimore's Penn Station is like a block, like half a block away from University of Baltimore's campus. UB is very small. So just south of Mount Royal Avenue and on North Charles Street, there's like this alley between the business center building and like one building off of Preston. And I call it, and I'll show you guys pictures. I sent you pictures. I know I sent you pictures. I call it a shrine to the current thing.
Whatever that thing is.
Bro, when I tell you there was Black Lives Matter, there was the Commie Fist, there was, silence is violence, there's LGBTQ, everything. Like, you have an electric transformer painted in the pink and blue and white of the trans flag.
Amazing.
The irony of that is like the irony of all of that is just like everything. There's rainbows everywhere. It looks like a fucking mess. And this is where I went to school at. And I'm like, this is what kids are going to college for. They are they're not even hiding it.
Right.
It is full indoctrination. And it's all kids can't read. They can barely read, barely write, can't do math, but yet they know everything about critical consciousness. They know that a capitalist system is corrupt, and they need to dismantle and destroy and do all of this stuff, and without a single hope for building anything.
Right.
It's sickening to me.
I can explain a little bit about the current thing trend. I think it's actually a little bit more toxic and poisonous and purposeful than you might have acknowledged. So one of the projects that I'm working on explains this a little bit. So in New York City, we had the Occupy Wall Street movement.
I remember it.
In
I remember it well.
2012. Right?
I thought it was 2011. Was it 2011?
2011 to 2012, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know how organically it launched, but people stepped up to organize for it immediately, because with that comes some power. If you step up to lead whatever the left wing cause is, you grow massive amounts of followers, you grow social media influence, you grow political influence, and all of that translates to votes really fast. So when Occupy Wall Street happened, I know like the anonymous people were very involved in sort of the language of that campaign, right?
Yeah.
But there were also two prominent organizers, not yet prominent, but people who became prominent later in life, who stepped up to help organize Occupy Wall Street, and that is Linda Sarsour and this man named Amin Hussein, who is the current founder of Decolonize This Place. So both of them stepped up to organize Occupy Wall Street. Now,
Oh my God.
you would think that, based on what you know about them now, that this is a little bit outside of their wheelhouse, right? That, Linda Sarsour really comes from this space of this sort of Muslim activism after 9/11, and then later, let's call it the second half of her career, more like pro-Palestinian stuff in her neighborhood, which is the most Palestinian neighborhood in New York City, right? Deep in Bay Ridge, right? So anyway, this seems a little like Occupy Wall Street. Why are they doing that? Well, they did that because there's really enormous benefits to being a lead organizer in a movement, like I said before, with growing power and votes. So eventually that movement dies down, and fast forward a little bit to the Standing Rock event that happened in the desert over the pipeline. Who do you think stepped up to organize Standing Rock? Linda Sarsour and Amin Hussein from Decolonize This Place. Oh, okay.
What?
Now we're on our second movement, but it's the same organizers. This is strange, right? So it's almost like there are activists who probably have a core mission and a core value system and some things that they actually want to achieve, but now they're on to their second cause. They're activists looking for a cause, really. Right?
Yeah.
So now years go by.
Fucking commie mercenaries.
we're-
How about that?
So we're on to the second thing, and both of them are out there organizing for Standing Rock. Then
That was what, 2018 or was it 2019?
I think it was before that. I think it was like 2016, something like that. It's in the middle. So anyway, fast forward a little bit, and then there was this movement, an interest in, they call it BDS, right? Boycott, divestment, and sanctions on Israel.
Yeah.
So who's organizing like the BDS stuff
Not
in New
them.
York City? Really more Amin Hussein, but both of them were deeply involved in it, right? And now keep in mind, this whole time he's running this all under the same banner of, his movement, which is Decolonize This Place, right? And the whole time he's peppering all of it with his core values, and whether it's Standing Rock or whether it's Occupy, or he's saying you guys also really need to be anti-Israel and pro-Palestine, because he's in his heart a Palestinian activist who has said out loud that he wants to decolonize America and Israel, right? So fast forward again to the Me Too movement. Who steps up to organize? Linda Sarsour. Oh, here we go again. This time it's about women's rights.
So she bigfooted Tarana Burke.
Yeah. So there was...
Typical.
She got very toxic within that whole movement very fast.
Sarsour did?
Yeah,
Okay.
Because she had already been really tarred with being very anti-Semitic and not apologizing when she should have. And basically she stepped up to organize, became a really intrinsic part in the beginning stage, but immediately got shut out of it because of how toxic she is. So then I learned during that same time, Amin Hussein was sort of working with let's call it the original smaller organizations that would later become BLM, right? So I think BLM started in New York City really when there was that cop who was accused of killing, I don't know, it was Trayvon Martin, I don't remember the guy's name, but it got overturned.
Trayvon Martin wasn't
For
here.
the cigarettes.
Yeah.
That was
Garner.
Eric Garner.
Right.
Yeah, that was in Staten
Right.
Island.
So when that court case went awry was really the sort of, was when BLM really became a thing in New York City, right? And originally it was sort of these smaller groups around the city that were kind of like neighborhood groups, right? I think the way Amin Hussein phrases it is he calls them Black liberation groups, right? That would eventually form like Voltron to become BLM. So while I want to say it was like 2016 through 18, he focused on doing activism work for them and with them to convince all of these Black liberation groups in New York City to be on his side on everything, right? That in order to be a good, if you're Black, you're oppressed by white people, we're Palestinians, we're oppressed by Jews, you need to agree with us that Israel is evil and be pro-Palestine. If you want to be a good Black radical, you also have
Race,
to
class narrative.
adopt all of these values.
Yeah.
And because he already had been doing this for years and had a lot of experience, media connections, large social media following, they bought it, hook, line, and sinker.
Bought right in.
So then, obviously, the 2020 riots happened, and who steps up to help organize both, the 2020 riots. Linda Sarsour advocated for it heavily, and she is, an enormous influential person, with nods from the White House, right? And Amin Hussein, he's runs the now we're 10 years into decolonize this place being a thing, stepped up to help organize. Obviously, he had spent some years working with these sort of BLM smaller groups beforehand as well. And now we're having this moment of the Palestine marches in New York City and this whole like anti-Israel movement. And who were two of the lead organizers of that? It's been the same people this entire time. So when you said, what was the name that you had for the place, the current thing? What is it called?
The shrine to the current thing. The shrine of the current thing.
Yes, exactly. So the far left, the most radical, far left fringe people of influence in New York City, they go from cause to cause and they sort of vacuum up whatever that movement is.
Yeah.
All of the followers, all of the power, and it grows their influence for elections. It grows their influence for endorsements. It grows their influence in public speaking. Yeah. It grows their ability to raise funds. It's a real thing, and they are radicals looking for a new cause. And the funny thing is we don't ever really know how much they care about any of those causes. They could not care about any of them because the goal could be always to gain more power, to form a voting bloc, to have this sort of radical protester movement, to become known as a sort of lead voice, get paid to speak, do all of these things, right? And maybe their intention the entire time, because they were willing to adopt any movement as their own, was to just build something really big and then steer that ship towards the thing that they really believed in slowly.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's how communism works. Go ahead.
I think the analogy that I can come up with for like people who are like that is it's like the traveling pastor who wears a silk suit, right?
Totally.
Yep.
Does he believe everything he's saying? He believes enough. He's like, I believe in God, right? But he doesn't believe everything. His goal is to make as much money as possible, have as much influence as possible, and just reap the rewards of it by using this book, by using this doctrine. And it's the same thing. Because, like...
snake oil salesman.
Yeah, they are, pretty much. They're...
Chitlin circuit.
That's why I think a lot of the right doesn't fully understand who these people are.
Not at all.
Because... for one, they keep calling them liberals, and they're not.
Yep.
If they understood what they believed in, even if you just understand like the core, you can predict everything else.
Yep.
And so that's why, like for me, I understand, and nothing shocks me.
Yeah.
And the one thing I give them credit for, in a weird way, is propaganda. They're really good at propaganda.
They're great. Extremely well.
Extremely good at propaganda. And the right doesn't understand good propaganda.
They really don't.
Their messaging is terrible, just in general. Their messaging is terrible. And so they don't understand the importance of messaging, the importance of convincing people, the importance of not falling for the trap, right? And they don't realize that these people place traps. So we talked about the black female pilot when they want to show like a picture and Delta or United says, is just marketing it as diversity. That's the trap.
That is the trap.
That's the trap. Is half their force black females that you just picked off the street? You want to fly a plane? Like, of course not.
Right.
Overwhelmingly, it's white men in America. So like, this is part of the propaganda trap. And a lot of people on the right underestimate how good they are. And the last thing I'll say is the most important aspect that they wanted is for us to all become race conscious.
Yes.
That is the most important.
That's part of becoming the all.
Yes.
That's part of it.
And the right doesn't understand that they want you to become race conscious. It doesn't mean that you agree with their stance.
Exactly.
It just means that now you're race conscious. So if Charlie Kirk says, whenever I see a black pilot, I'm going to have to ask if they're qualified. Congratulations. The left won.
Exactly.
You're race conscious now. Like this is part of the objective, is to make you see race no matter what. Even if it's in disagreement with their stance, you are now race conscious. And now they can get you to
The
move.
real action
Yeah.
is your opponent's reaction.
Yes.
And Charlie Kirk, who has said some pretty, I'll give him credit. He said some good things in the past, but he just fell right into the trap. And it's frustrating because I was raised conservative, right? My parents have been, or at least I think I was raised conservative, because my parents have basically voted Republican for president nearly every election cycle. They voted differently locally, right? Like in Maryland and in Baltimore, whatever. Primarily because to run as a Republican in Baltimore is the best way to get laughed at, you know. But anyways, but like my dad, and I love my father, my mother too. I love them both. Those two raised my brothers and I to have a spirit of discernment, right? While we were homeschooled, right? So we learned how to read, we learned how to write, we learned math and stuff like that. But we also learned things like logic. We learned about critical thinking, how to think critically, how to deduce things, right? My dad he prides him. Well, I shouldn't say he prides himself. He's really not a prideful man. But one of the things that I love about my father is that he is a very observant. He's very observant, and he can pick out patterns with the best of them. And he gave that to us, his 5 sons. Communists or fascists or whatever, they are creatures of, they follow a very, very specific pattern that isn't hard to pick out, okay? But these people on the right, and I'm going to put Matt Walsh in that too, and I respect Matt Walsh for everything that he did to speak out against the whole gender cult. These guys, these conservatives, they are so woefully unprepared for these people. You could tell it's very easy to tell that these people have only hung out with others who think and act and do as they do. Okay? They are just as siloed, they are just as politically walled in as these leftists are. Okay? And what I see now is there is a war going on for the middle, right? The Overton window of what it means to be liberal is so far off to the left that essentially anybody who doesn't fall within their frame and is marching leftward with them is a right-winger.
Yeah, or the enemy in their own words.
Or the enemy, exactly. Because listen, this is Maoism. This is Maoism with American characteristics. Or on the right, if you're not a full-blown worshiper of Trump, that's basically it. If you're not a full-blown worshiper of Donald Trump, who I fully admit I was wrong about in a lot of respects, but if you're not willing to see him as like this savior, this cure-all savior, you're not a right winger. You're just another shit lib, And I remember telling my girlfriend a couple days ago that I'm tired of the manipulation from both sides.
Yeah, it's the same attitude you're saying from the extremities of both ends.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm surprised that Chris Rufo gets anywhere with right-leaning people, because Chris Rufo used to be a conservative. Used to be a progressive.
Yeah.
He's from that mob. I think didn't he go to Harvard? I think he did go to
He has a
Harvard.
degree from Harvard,
Yeah, from their
Extension.
Harvard Extension School. So he's out that mob. He was a left winger. And what I'm noticing is people who have been on that side, who see what these people are about, who can pick out the fact that no, asshole, you are not a liberal.
Right.
We know what you're going to do. We know how you're going to attempt it, and we're not going to let you do it. And there are very few people out there who can do that effectively. And I'm going to just give you a quick shout out because you have done a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Of picking out these communist organizations in New York City who are intentionally working to make life extremely difficult for working people, and I want to thank you. I don't think I've ever done that on camera, but I'm doing that right now. Like, bro, thank you. God bless you, and God bless the work of your hands.
Thank you.
Seriously.
I appreciate it. So I'm a political consultant, and I've only worked in this space really since 2018. And I did work at a very high-level job, really, at my first political consulting firm. But when I went into that job in 2018, it was a New York City Dem political strategist organization, and it was my first time doing this work, and I didn't really understand where I personally fell on the political spectrum on the map. Right, I've always been interested in the way the world works, and I guess I have this sort of engineering mind, right? Like the way that I'm hardwired is that I'm obsessed with complicated puzzles and untangling knots of wires, right? You give me the most complicated puzzle in the world, and I'm just going to obsess over solving it until I solved it, right? It's just the way my brain is hardwired. I have no other choice, right? So anyway, I got this job at this sort of influential consulting firm, Dem consulting firm, in 2018. And it was my first time working behind the curtain, right? So politicians would come into the office that we had partnerships with, and did sort of supportive work for them, worked on their campaigns and stuff like that. And I'd be in meetings with some of these people, and these are people at the top of New York State right now, right? And I'd be in these meetings, and at the time there was a sort of generic daily social media strategy for all of them, which was everyone was required to comment about whatever the trending thing is today, right? It's like the trending words on Twitter, right? Which is still a thing, but for politicians, it was all about every politician had to make a public, at least a tweet, social media content, a hat tip to whatever the thing that was trending today is, right? And that goes for national trends and for local issues, right? So I'd be in meetings with some of these people, and these are the current top figures in New York State politics. And here's how those meetings went. So they'd sit down with us and the team, and they'd say, "Oh, I have to make a comment about X thing today. What should my public position on X be?" Right? And we'd be sitting as a group and trying to figure out what this current politician's stance is on whatever that subject is.
Jesus.
Now, there were only two ways that all of those conversations played out. Here's one. One is they'd say, "Okay, so my public stance on this policy decision or whatever is blah blah blah," and then they'd say, I don't believe this crazy thing, right? But I have to say it because it signals to the voters that I'm on the far left side of this issue. And so just so you're all clear, this is insane, and I don't believe this at all, but I have to say it to signal to them, right? That was one way that those meetings went. The other way that those meetings went was, I'm gonna say this crazy thing, and I believe it. And that was it. Every single meeting I was at that year went exactly like that. So I'd be in these meetings, and I'd go home, and I'd say, wow, I work with this, like, let's call it like 10, New York State politicians over the course of that year regularly. And every position they took was either I have to say it and I don't believe it, or I actually believe the crazy thing. And this was a really hard thing for me to struggle with personally and professionally, because I just come home and I'd say, like, wow, things are really much more broken than the average person even understands, because, like, I can no longer differentiate between which politicians believe what they're saying or not. Like,
It's a
and
hard
like
place to be.
imagine like a completely average person who's not sitting at that meeting. Like, they're just completely blind to what's really happening behind the curtain. And I feel like that was my first moment of throttling me back towards the center quite a bit, because so often, like, what I said about those meetings on the record today is enough to make you disgusted, right? It's awful. But on top of that, so much of those conversations had this, like, tinge of anti-white racism, where high-level consultants would say, oh, we have to work in some anti-white language into this messaging because it's going to make people like you even more, And I was in those meetings constantly. This isn't something like I overheard in passing by.
Right.
These are like strategist meetings with top politicians in New York State. So it's
How did that? I know it sounds. I know it. This is like the ultimate cliche question, but, like, how did that make you feel? I mean, I can't imagine you felt good
yeah.
all the time about being in a situation like that. Like, how did that, seriously, as a white guy,
Yeah.
right, in that environment, how did that feel? Like,
I would say that this was before the rise of AOC, right? So I think she got elected during that year, right? It was during my first year of being a political consultant.
Alex Stein's girlfriend?
You want a joke? So she used to work at Coffee Shop, right, which is this old spot in Union Square that was there forever. It was like a really popular, like, NYU restaurant or whatever. And I lived in that area when I was a political consultant, and so like, people in my office worked around the clock. They worked 100 hours a week, so they were always sort of late to get into the office because people showed up at 10, and then you'd work till 7 or 8. You'd go home, and then you'd still get phone calls and emails until midnight, 1 in the morning every day. Right. So anyway, it was a slow morning kind of job, but we worked 100 hours a week.
Right, right.
I would go into coffee shops sometimes in the morning as a political consultant to just have breakfast and get my head together and answer my emails, and she'd serve me coffee.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that was her job.
Wow.
That's where she worked, in my local diner that I used to stop at in the morning as a political consultant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, going back to
Sorry about that.
going back to answering your question, how did it make me feel? I think I went into that job feeling like the Dems are the good guys, and my first time sort of meeting my boss, who is like a very influential person in New York State politics. Him sort of convincing me, like, the type of work that we're doing is really important. You know what I mean? We're fighting against, evils and corruptions, and fighting for labor, for people, with, like, middle class jobs and blue collar jobs, and we're trying to get, benefits for them, and just these really, like, let's call it like generic Dem, top down,
Platitudes,
stuff like that. But as a person who was not influential and had never really worked in this sort of political space before, I just bought it hook, line, and sinker. And then over the course of that year, I really got to see how rotten everything was from the inside, and it was incredible. At the time, I felt like you said earlier, how the Republicans don't really have good messaging, and so they're very unrelatable. At the time, I had never even thought about, switching parties, about, the type of things that were coming out of the right, the type of politicians on the right, their version of the media. It had had never crossed my mind to pay attention to it once at that point. But it was really, I felt like it stepped me back towards the center left dramatically fast, right? Like, oh, maybe I'm just one click left of center, you know? And since then, not even to talk about my political evolution, you know, and how my thinking has changed over the time, but that's very much a thing, is this sort of like moderate Democrat that's trying to fight that fight from the center left, and that doesn't agree with all the far left policies and hates the DSA and stuff like that, but does not want to step across the aisle because, especially in New York, it tars you as being a Trump supporter immediately, and there's social costs to making that decision in New York City, right? It's you lose friends over it, and it's very strange, like I would even say that, not that I want to go in a diatribe about Mayor Adams, but that he sort of identifies as a center-left person,
Yeah, I would say he's center-left as well.
Yeah.
He's definitely not a progressive. So, all right, I'll tell you what my issue is with the Democrats, at least as of right now, especially with people who are like Mayor Adams. Mayor Adams occasionally plays to the left, the progressive left. Joe Biden, he's not a progressive, but he'll say the progressive thing when it's convenient, right?
You mean when he knows what day it is?
When he reads from the
teleprompter.
script, the teleprompter, right? Like that's when he'll say the thing.
Right.
So when some dude wearing a dress sits next to him and says, "Yeah, kids should get mutilated," he's like, "Yeah, that sounds great."
That checks out.
That checks out, right? Right? Political advisors? Okay. Listen, I don't really believe any of this stuff. And get that weird guy next to me.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah. So that's what, like, my issue is that they play to it, and I don't think they understand what they're playing to.
Right.
They just think, well, they vote D.
Well, Eric Adams for sure. Like, oh my God. Like, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
No, I feel like your moderate Dems, the center left people, are playing a dangerous game. Okay? I feel like there is some as above, so below shit that they're trying to pull in trying to appease these socialists. The one thing, I mean, I would even say the mayor of my hometown, Brandon Scott. I feel like he's playing that game.
Right.
I mean, I saw Brandon a couple months ago. Actually, he was in New York. Hadn't seen him in several years. It was great to see him, But I feel like, especially with the bike lanes, and maybe we'll touch on that later. But I feel like all of these center-left politicians are trying to have it both ways with these far-left radicals.
Right.
And the problem is all you're doing is putting off when the leopard decides to eat your face.
Right.
We're learning that right now when you had all of that crowd of protesters I shouldn't say protesters, fucking terrorists in front of the White House, and they're threatening like they're going to breach the White House law.
Yeah.
That's the leopard. That's the leopard getting hungry.
Yep.
Okay? When I watch Eric Adams standing in the middle of a bunch of white male leftists, standing around him, and he's talking about like vegan, like carbon emissions and climate change and all this other bullshit, right? He looks completely uncomfortable. He doesn't know, he's like, I don't understand any of this, like,
You actually do
Like
sound
he gives that energy. I mean, he probably eats a salad with those fucking guys, but he doesn't. But like when it comes to Agenda 2030, you would never. Could you really imagine Eric Adams, standing up and being like, "Yeah, we're looking for a sustainable and equitable future for all New Yorkers." Like, come on now. He don't believe that shit. This dude is a former police captain with NYPD, and he wasn't even that great a one. But but honestly, could you see a blue collar guy like that? Blue collar guy like that spouting off Agenda 2030 bullshit? Of course not.
I think what you're acknowledging is the people who work in the machine having to tip their hat towards the machine and the way that it really works.
They're scared to fucking death.
Yeah. So going back to your point, the way that really works in politicians getting elected is, first of all, the higher the position in New York State, the more people are weary to run as Republican, right? Which is why people like Bloomberg wasn't really sure if he should run as a Dem or Republican. Even Donald Trump, when he ran for president, wasn't really sure at first which party he should register with, right? This is a thing, right? People throwing their hat into the ring and not really sure what they want to do, right? But a lot of those positions, a moderate Dem, especially the ones of really big power, moderate Dems are the ones that end up getting the job, right? So like Bloomberg winning as a moderate Dem, Mayor Adams winning as a moderate Dem, this could be just a symptom of them saying, I really want this job, but I'm not going to be able to win it as a Republican, so I have to be a moderate Dem. Now going to what you just said too about the sort of playing to the left thing, the way that really translates to me is that every Democratic politician in New York State only fears being primaried from
the left.
That's it, right? So this is a term that my friend Seth Barron calls progressive leapfrog. And it's that when, it's not just when these people are in office, but it's also when they're campaigning, that they campaign further left than they really are out of fear of being primaried by the far left. And then whoever's running against them, an incumbent possibly, is is trying to outflank them and go even further left, and then the next person, the next election is going even further left, and it's just a shift leftwards, whether the person means it or not, or the person who actually wins that race is further left than the last person. It's just a march leftward over time.
I can usually tell who's a true believer and who's
right. Yeah.
Same.
There's a certain craziness.
Yeah, there's a certain craziness, frequency, and the person who's not a true believer says occasional buzzwords.
Right.
The person who's a true believer, they say all the words.
Every single one of them.
They say
they got the whole lexicon right in their face.
Yeah. We need to decolonize and get rid of white supremacy because it's in every facet of our society. Like they go full.
It's like reading from a Bible of their cult.
Exactly. Yeah. They're true believers. These other people are just like, listen, like you said. Actually, thank you for saying that because I never really made that connection. Yeah. They're fearful of the left coming against them. But since both of you are in New York City, I wanted to ask you about the migrant situation.
Oh, sure.
I've been into the city since all this started. Is it as bad as the media portrays?
Sure. I'll start. So I wrote one of the first stories about the migrant crisis when it began last spring for a small newspaper in the West Village that I was friends with the editor, and they sort of let me do whatever I want. So for like 4 or 5 months, I did a story once a month for them, and I wrote something about the migrant crisis. So I was very early on it. And this is a trend that I actually notice is a lot of the things that I sort of push forwards, people aren't ready to digest them at that moment. but then 6-8 months later go by and everyone is saying what I said. So this is just the joke that me and my friends make is that the world thinks everything is a sort of left versus right fight, but people like myself and the journalists that I'm really good friends with, we're just early on things, and people aren't ready to hear them when we say them. So anyway, the migrant crisis. So I just wrote like a 30-page report about the migrant crisis that is the first report issued from my new organization. And it's called One City Rising. And
Whoop, whoop.
on the report, it explains all of the different ways that the migrant crisis harms New York City that no one is talking about. I felt like it was really important to do this sort of like 360-degree view of it because people such as yourself, normal people all around the country, people who care and want to know more about it are only seeing it in glimpses through daily flashes and news stories, through an 800-word, story about a specific incident in the New York Post. God bless them and thank them for doing all of that work, but it's always just a story about the migrant crisis, not the big picture.
Right.
So anyway, the migrant crisis is pretty visible, and it affects New York City in so many different ways that are really tough to capture, impossible to capture in a single article.
Right.
But even in 50 articles, you'd still miss 100 different ways that it affects the city, right? I'll just give some examples of things that I see that I find very strange. So the hotels in New York City are primarily concentrated in Midtown to downtown to FiDi, right? This is always where where the hotels in New York City are concentrated more than other areas of the city, right? So 50% of our hotels are migrant hotels right now, right?
Holy shit, 50%.
50%. So if you pass by any of them, there's just like motorcycles and mopeds and delivery bikes outside, and a lot of people. First of all, they're working for DoorDash and these like delivery apps full time.
Yep.
Making full time money while living for free in Midtown hotels. Some of them 4-star hotels, and the contracts for those hotels with the government were paying double rates per room, or close to double rates, right? Like I audited a few of them myself, and you'd look up how much a room cost in like a Holiday Inn in FiDi, during COVID or even 2019, and it'd be like $170 a room per night, and we're paying $300 a room per night now for it to be migrant hotels, right? So what you see is that we're paying their rent for them to live for free in Midtown and spend their money on whatever they want, which is insane because New York City is so expensive and aspirational, and rents are really high, and we're all really working hard to pay our rents, but they get to live for free somehow, and we're even getting ripped off by paying double rates for their rooms, which is just an insane amount of incompetence and malfeasance on our government's part.
Yeah.
But you see them loitering.
Malfeasance, yes.
Yeah.
Incompetence, no. Because they know exactly what the fuck they're doing. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, to your point, the Hotel Trade Council is a really influential organization that's sort of a lobbying group that represents the best interests of the hotel world in New York City.
Yeah.
And the hotels obviously took an enormous hit during COVID because no one was coming to New York and everyone was sort of emptying out of the cities, right? And this was a way for them to, they're hugely politically influential too, right? So they were the people, the reason we got de Blasio as mayor is because they sunk so much money into his campaign based on the promises that he made them, right? So basically, they're an enormously influential political machine. They have the ability to, invest millions of dollars in elections and gave us de Blasio. And in exchange, we got hotels all over New York City, high-end hotels, which I don't hate. I actually think it was really nice. I just don't like the politics behind all of it. Right.
Right.
But the Hotel Trade Council saw this as an opportunity to lick their wounds. And they said, oh, well, we've really been suffering since COVID began. We're going to charge higher rates for these hotel rooms. And because of right to shelter, right? Because the city has a rule in place. It's not a law. It's called a consent decree. That if someone shows up in New York City and touches their feet to the ground, they have the right to demand shelter, and we have to put that person in shelter. I think the initial rule is before midnight of that day, right? And so if we don't do it, legal aid can sue the city for breaking that rule, right? So basically, the migrants are flooding in, and as fast as they were flooding in, they were filling up the homeless shelters, and it was even too much for that. So we had to put them into other places, and the city started flooding the hotels with them, using the same rules that we use for homeless shelters, which is single men buildings and then family buildings have to be separated, right? You can't have, in a homeless shelter, you can't have like families with small children and random single men sleeping in the same facility, right? But because of right to shelter, we had to start, basically what was happening was Mayor Adams would get a phone call, 1,000 migrants showed up today. And he'd have to make a phone call. He'd have to get off that phone and make another call and say, we need hotel rooms for 1,000 people that showed up today. Get this done. And boom, next thing you know, we have a year contract with that hotel to immediately start housing those people. The next morning, the same phone call comes in and the same situation happens again, to the point where we filled up 50% of our hotels. And you know what's really funny to me about this is there's been stories. Actually, I don't think I saw news stories about it, but I saw people talking about it on Twitter, that there's migrants living in hotels in Midtown and in the tents, right, out in like Floyd Bennett Field and stuff like that, that have saved up enough money while working here to buy cars. And they have cars while living in these shelter facilities. And like, I've never gotten this privilege to like live for free in Manhattan and not pay rent and save up enough money to buy a car. This is insane to me.
But how long do they have to shelter them for? Is there some sort of time constraint?
So yes, there is a time constraint. I think the current rule is 60 days. That if you stay in a shelter or a hotel for 60 days, that you have to reapply to get back into it if you haven't figured your way out of it. And there's a facility in the East Village where everyone has to go to reapply, and it's complete chaos over there. There's basically a line of 1,000 people outside 24 hours a day, sleeping on the sidewalk. The whole street is just lined with piss. And there's just garbage everywhere because people don't want to lose their place in the line.
Right.
So they're just littering and using the bathroom in the street. And it's been a nightmare over there. And there's been incidents of violence. There's been people who got stabbed on the line, I think twice already. It's really a mess, And as far as how it affects crime, I would say that it affects crime at sort of like a normal human scale, right? That they say is it like 9% of people of the whole human race have is it psychopathy tendencies, right? So it's like that's the bad egg percentage, right? Let's say it's been over 100,000 people have passed through the system already. I think we currently have something like 65,000 people from the migrant crisis within our care at this moment. Probably 9% of them are really bad eggs. You know what I mean? So that's the that's the effect they're having on crime. There's stories about migrants forming robbery crews in Midtown, doing group robberies in Times Square, snatching chains, going to malls and looting stores and things like that. I haven't seen a news story about trafficking women in the city yet. There's been stories about the migrant women being prostitutes in Queens,
Jackson
right?
Heights.
In Jackson
Jackson
Heights.
Heights and Corona.
That's a really big thing out there. But I've had people reach out to me to say during the warmer months of the year to say that they're seeing migrants, clearly prostituting women in the Penn Station area at night, and that everyone says the same thing when they message me about this stuff, and they say, I would have took a photo, but I was scared. You know what I mean? And you should go and check it out. And that it's really in some cases it's worse than people think.
Wow.
So I'll give you. The reason why I wanted you to go first is because you've researched it.
Sure.
You're in the weeds. You're in it. You see it like close up, right? Here's my experience as a degular dude going back and forth to work. I can sum it up in 2 words. Chocolate, chicle, chicle.
Yeah.
$1, un peso. That's what you see a lot of in the subway system these days, especially in Manhattan. You don't see it too much on certain lines in Brooklyn. Not on my line just yet. But what you'll see these Latin American women who they don't speak Spanish at all, but they'll have their kids tied to their back.
Oh, you mean English? They don't speak English?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't speak English.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just wanted to make sure.
Sorry. Could you imagine? Lo siento. No, no hablo español. Yeah. But they don't speak English, right? And they're selling box. They get right up in your face, and they have like their box full of candies and chewing gum and stuff like that, and they hold them in your face, and they go to everybody on the fucking train car, right? And it's annoying, it's annoying because because if they don't have the kids tied to their back, if they're big enough, the kids are big enough, they're running ahead, doing the same thing. This little 6-year-old with chocolate, chicle. It's like, so you have that in the subway system, right? And what I've noticed is, you remember this because you've lived in New York all your life, most of your life, I should say. Remember how uptown it used to be these black kids who would have like the big boxes that they would like either staple or tape together of different like little snacks and candies and shit like that. And they would be like, yo, ladies and gentlemen, I'm selling this candy, trying to do something positive with my life. And they would do that. You don't see none of them motherfuckers no more. You don't see none of them.
But I've been seeing that kid doing that thing since I was a little kid. Since I was a little skateboarder kid who used to hang out at Washington Square Park in 1994.
Yeah.
But the joke that we always made about it in high school was, it's the kid raising money for the non-existent basketball team.
Right, yeah. Nah, they still do that. Like, you still have some guys.
It's been a thing forever.
Right, yeah. I mean, and it's been a thing, but you don't even see that anymore. Yeah. You don't see that anymore. You see, it's the same thing. You see these little, Guatemalan or Honduran or even further south. They don't speak English. They're selling candy. They're getting up and they're earlier this week. I'm on the train because I had to work up in the Bronx, and I'm seeing these two. Clearly, they were migrants. I hate even using the term. They ain't supposed to be here. I see these two. They're not. They're not. And honestly, listen, the biggest problem, I'm going to if you don't mind, permit me a couple of minutes to go on a tirade here.
Unpack it. Go ahead.
The biggest problem with all of this, I think it's one of those core issues, is the fact that these politicians, these bureaucrats, and all the people who are in charge have lost the ability to say no.
Very much so.
There are no limiting principles with any of these people. The first thing you said earlier was that it's not a law to provide, right to shelter is not a law. Right to shelter is a consent decree.
Yep.
Meaning that they could very easily, the mayor, city council, somebody in the higher ups could very easily say, no, we're not doing this. We're done. Enough. And you mean to tell me that because Eric Adams and the rest of these cowards in the city council, well, I won't say cowards because some of them want this shit to happen. You mean to tell me that none of these people who actually have power and are in charge they just lost the ability to say no?
Yeah.
You have people on the streets pissing and shitting in front of people because they don't want to lose their place in line. How humane is that?
Yeah.
You have the inability to process and execute on simple solutions is what's killing this city.
Yeah.
And it enrages me because, again, everything could easily, the road to recovery in this case for New York City is just say no. Just say enough.
Yeah.
They don't know how to say enough when it comes to fucking bike lanes. Every single leftist indulgence in this city that we are dealing with stems from the inability to say no. We have bred out or we have educated out limiting principles. No one has any limiting principles anymore. No one has any kind of concept of saying, oh, no, I'm good.
What you're saying is that basically they advocate for infinite everything.
Infinite everything.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's infinite everything. It's like, and I think it was Margaret Thatcher who said that socialism is great as long as you have other people's money, as long as other people's money doesn't run out.
Right.
The journalism's learning that fucking lesson right now. You know, but the point I'm trying to make is, getting back to what I see. All of this could be fixed if people just said no. Enough is enough. We can't keep doing this. We can't keep letting these people do this. Just say no. What is so hard about saying no? What are you afraid of? You mean to tell me all I got to deal with is getting sued by fucking legal aid? Legal aid.
Right.
Not the ACLU, not any trade union or anything like that. No, I got to worry about fucking legal aid.
They've really become a sort of far left policy anarchist group over the last 4 or 5 years. It's been really strange.
These people really think that they could just, how is it that these people, how have we become so captured?
Yeah.
Because we have weak people in government who can't say no. They are incapable of saying no.
They let the most cancerous parts of government grow.
Oh, yeah.
Unchecked. Yeah.
The bureaucracy. But look, we talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
Communism is about bureaucracy.
Yep.
That's how you end up with 1,000 writers in the writer's room for a Star Wars movie.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's how you end up with like 50, 60 people in a writer's room for a TV show, and all of and every time the quality of the writing is trash, and it all happens to say the same thing. It all fits within that vertical integrated messaging. It's ridiculous at this point.
Right.
And that's the bureaucratic part. But getting back to, so yeah, you see a lot of that in Queens. Yes, it is true. The shit about the part about prostitution out there. I've seen videos of that over the last several months. That whole stretch of Roosevelt under the 7 train between 74th Street, Broadway, and 90th Street, Elmhurst Avenue. Yeah, between those 3 stops, Jesus Christ, it's bad.
Yeah,
it's bad. Like, I don't know how bad it is further out, like in Corona and like Willets Point and all that. But I think 103rd is probably the cutoff for all of that. But because it's Corona Plaza, that's a pretty busy area. But the fact is, we've got a significant problem. In my own neighborhood, I live in Brownsville, Brownsville. For those who don't know, it's like I'm bordered to the west by East Flatbush, to the north and west by Crown Heights, and then to the east is East New York. Directly north of me is like Ocean Hill. So anyway, so Weeksville. I'm kind of in this sweet spot. Brownsville is historically a West Indian neighborhood, right? Right along with East Flatbush. A few months ago, last summer, in fact, I had a guy come up to me, Hispanic, didn't speak a lick of English, and was asking me if I knew of anybody who was hiring in the area. Now, I speak a little Spanish, so I was able to talk to him a little bit. And I was like, no, I don't know of anyone who needs work. I'm not sure. Because what'll happen is some of these migrants will go into these bodegas if they got a grill, right? If they got a grill, a little deli or whatever, they'll sell. They'll work the grill, right? But I'm like, no, I don't know anybody. They asked me if I was hiring. I'm like, hiring for what? Like I have a semi 9 to 5 like you do, but so a couple weeks ago, I was heading up to my girlfriend's house in the Bronx, and as I'm traveling up there, I'm noticing it was real cold that day. I remember it was really cold that day. I see 3 migrants huddled up on the mezzanine of my home stop on the 3 train. And I'm like, uh-oh. You know what they look like. On my way to the train station, I'm walking along the street and I'm seeing a migrant family. Again, they're speaking Spanish, and they're heading towards one of the homeless shelters in my neighborhood. I knew exactly where they were going because there's a big one right on Kings Highway and East 98th Street. And I'm like, it's happening. It's happening. Like, they're starting to move into, and this is what I told you earlier.
Further out.
Yeah, they're right, because Floyd Bennett Field is all the way at the bottom of Brooklyn.
Yep.
Right? So they're going from the neighborhoods around there, because there was ABC, I think it was ABC 7 confirmed that they were going to people's houses and begging for food, for money. Yep. They were just not going door to door. And I'm like, this is bad. They're begging for, doing this exact same thing that I came across. Begging for food, begging for money, begging for work.
Yep.
Okay? People are not meant to live like this, man.
Yeah.
They're not. I mean, when I think of, and when I think of these migrants, I'm just going to be honest, and I'll wrap up my little tirade here. It's not their fault. A lot of these people, it's not their fault. They are being played. They were promised things by the various 3-letter agencies throughout that go and advertise this place as being a land of plenty. We'll give you free this, we'll give you free that. It's the same way that the socialists it's the same way leftists and socialists have always worked. They promised free shit. What was Bernie Sanders' thing and the Squad's thing when they first started? Free weed, free college. They were going to legalize weed. They were going to make college free for all, Medicare for all. They could never quantify what Medicare for all was, but they just knew, oh, if you vote for us, it'll be the greatest thing ever. Medicare for all.
It's the joke we were making earlier about promise the world and figure out how to do it later. Exactly.
Like the conversation I had with my friend. I had a friend of mine. We were at World Financial. What was that? In Battery Park City, and she's like this big SJW, and I'm asking her like, you get everything you want, then what? What are you gonna do? Like, what are you going to create? You talk about dismantle, destroy, and all this. What are you going to create? And they're like, oh well, there are people who are there for that. I'm like, my ex-girlfriend said the same thing, like Miss DEI, and she's like, oh, well, there are people for that. There are people who will do that. I'm like, who are these people?
Yeah.
They just assume. That's all. They assume that's.
It's just an assumption.
Yeah.
Like, they don't know how to build anything. All they know how to do is destroy.
Yep.
And that's what's happening now. But anyways, these migrants are being used in a much bigger game. And I hate what's happening to them in this case because they're really being used for one purpose. They are the next voter base. They're the next voter base in New York City. I don't care what anybody says. They are up here for a reason. They are up here to replace voters. They are here to replace, and it doesn't matter the color. A lot of people will think, well, oh, it's just it's white people that they're looking to replace. No. If they're in Brownsville, they're there to replace the fucking blacks. If they're in Crown Heights, they're there to replace the Jews. If they're in places like Manhattan, if they're in Midtown, they're there to replace the businesses.
Yeah. I could speak to this as far as the political landscape in New York City. So we passed a bill to let non-citizens vote. I think it was a year ago in New York City.
Didn't that get struck down?
And it did. It got struck down by a judge from Staten Island who said this was just completely unconstitutional and threw it out. And now Mayor Adams is appealing that and trying to get it back.
So he did decide on doing it.
It's true.
So he did decide that. So he's keeping the appeal up then.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Adams.
They are fighting to bring back the non-citizen vote. And to your point of,
I've pissed off enough people in the city. Okay, I'm trying to have it both ways, and nobody likes me. So of course, we got to import new people so they'll vote for me. I promise them everything.
to speak to
Despicable.
To speak to them being a voter bloc, I think it's really important to just sprinkle this into the conversation here, is that New York City is really controlled by low voter turnout.
Yes.
So obviously there's years with big ticket items, like a presidential race, and a governor's race and the mayor, and those years have higher voter turnout than off years, right? Mm-hmm. But they're still low just across the board, right? I did an analysis recently of just some of the city council races, and I just think it's important to acknowledge this because we're talking about thousands and thousands of people who are being added, rolled into the city, mm-hmm. and that the city's working right now to get them the right to vote, right? If that's a thing, that's definitely happening. I'll give you an example. So, like the district in Chinatown, right? Chris Marte's district, I looked it up. I think there was 180,000 people who live there. Out of that 180,000 people who live within that district, there's 100,000 registered voters. And then, he won his race with not a lot of votes. I want to say it was 8,500. And the person who got the next highest amount of votes, the common sense moderate person who ran against him, got 3,500. So I could be off on those numbers. I definitely have them in my phone, but it's always something like that. Basically, most districts have around 175,000 people in total who live there, 100,000 registered voters, and then when it comes to how many votes people who win the election get, sometimes it's 10,000, and then the next best person who probably should have got the position, the person we wanted to win, got under 5. So no one votes in New York City, and there's just this enormous swath of people who are registered and don't vote, and even more people who live there and don't vote at all.
Well,
wasn't the total population of turnout, the percentage of turnout was something 19%?
That's a totally fair number, yeah.
Yeah. We're reaching like almost 2 hours actually talking.
Wow, we went big.
You went big. Go big or go home, I guess. I would say the last.
You're the
thing,
only non-big one here. Dude. Congrats to you, by the way. On your weight loss journey and everything, you're doing fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate it. The last thing I'll say about the migrant situation, and then I guess we'll start to wrap it up. I think that managing human beings is the hardest thing in the world. And I think that the migrant situation is going to be the biggest political issue by a mile when the election comes around. And that could be, I have my speculations on certain things depending on what's happening right now. But what we're seeing is the border issue used to be the border state's problem. Now it's everybody's problem. And actually, and it makes sense strategically, politically, and resource related. It makes sense for Texas to send people to other places. El Paso can't handle all these people. El Paso doesn't have the resources they have in New York City. So at some point, when the federal government fails to protect the border, you leave it to the states, especially a state like Texas. Well, Texas is going to do what Texas is going to do. And if it means busing people to Chicago and New York, it means busing people to Chicago and New York. And they're going to different places. They're starting to come into New Jersey.
Yep.
Right? So they're going to all over the place. And it's going to come to a point where the fantasy of we are a nation of immigrants, we'll just take anybody. No. We're a nation of immigrants, but we have to do it in a way that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make sense security-wise to allow people from all over the world, because a lot of people are in this conception that it's just Mexicans who are coming through, or maybe people from Central America. It's Haitians, Africans, Brazilians, Indians, everybody. Everybody from China. Everyone. They're paying the cartel to bring them across the border. And they're just being met by Border Patrol, put them into a facility and process them and fly them all over the country.
Yep.
There was a video I saw, I think it was yesterday, of a boat that sailed that came in someplace in California.
Yeah.
Yep.
Soon as the boat hit the shore, it was like 8 or 9 males, like military age males. They sprinted off the boat and ran into like 2 or 3 waiting trucks.
Yeah.
That were on waiting for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like they're coming from everywhere.
I'd like to comment on some of the things that you said.
Please do. I was just about to tell you.
So, regarding the people in New York City that are taking care of the migrant crisis, one of the people in charge of the emergency management department, his name is Zach Iskell. Zach is just a total hero in real life, through and through. There's actually a recent movie about him that you might have seen. It's that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, where he's like a Marine, I think. He's in like the Middle East fighting the war, and he gets shot, and his translator saves his life and carries him over the mountains, and he eventually gets back to America.
Is it Jughead?
It came out like less than 6 months ago.
Oh, it's new.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
So, and then he finds out that we didn't grant him the guy's citizenship, the translator who saved his life, and he goes back to save his life and bring him back here. So that movie is about Zach, and Zach is in charge of this emergency response unit, and he's in charge of the migrant crisis, and he views it as a humanitarian crisis, and he just wants to take care of those people. And he does it he's amazing, and he's really doing it from the best of intentions. He also set up the Javits Center in New York City during COVID because he could, and he thought that it was the right thing to do. He's just a hero across the board. The other person that he works with on that project, I think her name is, her last name is Williams Isom. I think Marianne Williams Isom. I forgot her first name, but anyway. I've been watching the press conferences with her, and she is also cut from the same cloth. She is really looking at this as a humanitarian crisis and What can we do to get families with small children into shelter to make sure people are safe, that they're not freezing, that they're not starving to death? And I've been really, really impressed with the two of them through and through for this entire project. But obviously, it's a very complicated issue,
Right.
and it affects the city in very different ways. And there's a lot of opportunity for grift, and there's ways to take advantage of it, like charging the double rates for the hotel rooms and things like that. And we're not being honest about all the different ways that it affects the city and harms the city. And I'd just like to give one anecdote about that. And like we could talk about how it affects jobs, right? So the hospitality industry, for example, is really happy about the migrant crisis, right? Because basically what happened is the minimum wage dollar amount in New York City is $15, right? But no one will accept $15 minimum wage jobs to work in kitchens in New York City. They artificially inflated that number to 16, right? So if you're hiring at the real number, no one takes the job. So you have to advertise 16 or more for the job.
Right.
And so people who work in kitchens are getting they're getting the 16 that they wanted. This influx of people, even just adding a couple of thousand people to that market, drops that 16 down to 15 immediately, because now there's thousands of people who are like, I'll do it for 12, right? So this sort of like artificial win that they got in the minimum wage number, that's not like the on the books number, but it's the real number, it's dead because of the migrant crisis. So I think that matters when we're talking about people who already live and work in New York, and people who have a home here and have been here for a long time and have spent their life, working in hospitality and hotels and things like that. We should sort of respect that, they work really hard for very little, and the more we flood their job market, it drops their wages immediately.
Right.
So even like a mass scale immigration harms legal immigrants and the illegal immigrants who are not part of this wave.
Okay. Well, we'll wrap it up there.
Sure.
We had a good 2-hour conversation. Thank you guys so much for coming to my place for the first time. And I enjoyed the conversation and the back and forth a little bit. So I wish you both well. You're off to Baltimore soon.
I am. AFC Championship. Let's go Ravens.
Let's go Ravens.
Let's go Ravens.
I'm not into the NFL anymore, but I'll root for the Ravens for you.
Thank you for your temporary bandwagon
Yes.
occupation.
If you see me turn on the NFL and actually watch a Ravens game, you know I'm doing that for you.
Oh, I would listen. If you do so, I would be happy, because I think
I watched it for a minute, the last game.
Oh, okay.
I watched it for a little bit.
I will say this: Lamar Jackson that's a special kid, man. I've believed in him from day one. He's a very humble dude. Loves the Lord. Like he's a solid quarterback. He's a very, very talented quarterback, and he's got a lot of good brothers around him on that team. So we'll see how they do against the Chiefs tomorrow afternoon. But that's going to be the biggest event in Baltimore in over 50 years. So I'm looking forward to being home for that. So
Yeah, nice. Oh, I want to apologize before. It was Anna Williams-Eisen is that woman's name.
Okay.
I hate that I got her name wrong on it, and I felt like she's an important person in managing the crisis, and I actually really respect her. So, yeah. Anna Williams-Eisen, if you happen to see this, I'm sorry about that. I have a deep respect for you.
Yes. All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks,
Really
of
appreciate
course.
it. And of course, we'll keep in touch.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. That's it.
oh, we're not going to clap.
No, clap is in the beginning.
Oh, well.
You like clapping. There you go.